Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought, of course, that I would talk about in this video and this subject that I found to be very particularly interesting. And for those of you, of course, that have seen my channel now for a while, as hopefully it nears that of 2K subscribers, and I'm going to try to do more stuff this year, I believe, in order to grow and edit my channel. But we'll see how that goes because I'm also, at least in terms of editing skills and some other stuff, a little bit ignorant to that part. But we'll see overall how that goes. I should be able to figure it out with time. But anyways, you guys know on my channel that a lot of the videos that I tend to review, they usually tend to be from that of the LDBC and new media, or certain channels or certain narratives that I may disagree with. And of course, the main reason for that being is because I think that the LDBC and new media, I think that they promote a lot of narratives, and I think that they put a lot of stories out there that I would personally disagree with, or at least a lot of narratives that I would personally disagree with, and that I also personally believe has a certain level of bias and racial and racist agendas. It just is what it is. And don't get me wrong, I think that, the LDBC and new media, I don't necessarily disagree with every single little thing that every single one of these guys or one of these channels has to say, because I think that what their main motivation was in creating this group or creating these channels is to try to make sure that black fighters were created or looked at in a better light, in a more objective and fair light, because I believe that they thought that a lot of the black fighters or a lot of their favorite fighters were being treated somewhat in a poor way by that of the boxing media, or at least with double standards, with certain racial standards, and not getting the credit that they deserve, or being hated on or criticized for, in their view, probably no good reason. And let me tell you what, I don't completely disagree with that. I think that, there are a lot of black boxers or a lot of black fighters or certain black athletes in general to where, yes, they do have to deal with certain double standards, and they also do have to deal with, maybe one would claim, unfair criticisms, depending on, what you would claim to be unfair. I certainly don't disagree with that. However, the LDBC and new media, like a lot of people that go into this, the racial agenda shit and all this other stuff, they take it a little bit too far. And unfortunately, with Dante's Boxing Nation and Aki TV and Boxing Eagle and a lot of these other guys, they're really not any better than that of old media. In fact, they may even be worse. It just is what it is. If you take a look at a lot of their videos and a lot of the narratives, and I know, I get some guys on my channel that say, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. The LDBC and new media, they're not a pro-black cult. They're pro-PBC. Right, well, the reason why they're such a fan of the PBC is because of Al Heyman. And Al Heyman is a black American man, I believe, from Harvard, who, of course, is running the show at the PBC. There's a reason why they want to promote the PBC so highly and not the other ones. There's a reason for that. So a certain amount of people, they come on my channel and they say, oh, they're not pro-black, they're pro-PBC. No offense, but you don't really know what these what these guys' machinations, you don't really understand what they're about. It just is what it is. I know what they're about. And once again, I don't completely disagree with every little thing that they say, but once again, DontaesBoxingNation is going to show you that he's just way too deep into that victimization mentality, once again, within this video. But anyways, he's going to be talking about Devin Haney and Bill Haney, and recently certain comments made about that of Floyd Mayweather Jr., towards that or against that of Floyd Mayweather Jr. by that of the Haney camp. And that in Dante's Boxing Nation, once again, is going to show you about why the LDBC and new media, all they are, once again, is the pro-black version of old media. That's all they are. If they were in charge mainly of ESPN, instead of all those other commentators, instead of who was in charge of it would basically be probably no better, no worse. It just is what it is, because these guys, once again, they also have many racist and racial agendas. It just is what it is. But, we're going to talk about that as the video goes along. But what you'll notice, once again, is that Dante's Boxing Nation, what his main thing in this video is that he just wants black boxers to stop hating on each other and to tell the truth. Well, what does tell the truth really mean? Does tell the truth mean that they're going to be as honest and objective as possible, or that they're going to state an opinion that they believe is true? Or does the truth mean to you that you have to basically have a hive mind like the rest of us, like the LDBC and new media, and you have to go along with our narratives, and if you say anything out of line, we're going to attack you, just like a cult would? And that's why I call them the pro-black cult, because they act very much like a cult. They're a bunch of fanboys, and they act like they act overall like a pro-racial cult movement. It just is what it is. When Shakur Stevenson at one point in time claimed that he believed that Tyson Fury could possibly beat Muhammad Ali because of his combined skills and his combined size. And a lot of you may agree with that. Some of you may disagree with that. It's up to you. At the end of the day, I get Shakur Stevenson's point because Tyson Fury, at his best, he's a great all-around fighter for the heavyweight division. In my view, one of the greater heavyweights that I've seen. And on top of that, he's a guy that's what, 6'9" to what 280 pounds. Of course, any fighter, that when it comes to that size differential, combined with also the great skill set, yes, of course they would have problems with it. Dante's Boxing Nation and many of these channels attacked Shakur Stevenson and basically said that he was trying to appease to that of the Caucasians and appease to that overall the fans. Well, was it really that he was trying to appease to that of the Caucasians and the fanboys, or was he really just stating an opinion that he thought was the truth? So once again, what really overall is the truth to that about Dante's Boxing Nation? It's very apparent that the truth that Dante's Boxing Nation is referring to is what he wants to hear and not overall about what these fighters truly think. So these LDBC and new media channels, they're no better than that of old media. And they claim overall that black fighters and black people are limiting themselves. Let me tell you what, the LDBC and new media channels, they're also not much better in terms of limiting each other either, because they're so emotional and they're so tied up in their fanboy and their pro-racial ways. But it is what it is. Anyways, Dante's Boxing Nation is going to talk about it. Let's tune in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right.
Let me also state this personally about Devin Haney really quickly, because a lot of people, of course, have compared him to that of the next Floyd Mayweather Jr. I believe, even a couple of other guys. I think even Floyd maybe has debated that. I think that if you're talking about fighters that maybe would be compared to that of Floyd Mayweather Jr., just in terms of stylistically, maybe Terrence Bud Crawford. That's probably the closest one that I would say has kind of come to that of Floyd Mayweather Jr. Devin Haney, I think, is a Floyd Mayweather Jr. mimic. He's a guy that tries to bring a lot to the table like what Floyd Mayweather Jr. did. But in my view, he's kind of a poorer copy. It just is what it is. Really, what Devin Haney reminds me more of is that of a Sugar Shane Mosley, just not quite the puncher nor the athlete of what a Sugar Shane Mosley was. Because I think that sometimes his attacks could be a bit more varied. I think that his defense could be a little bit better. I think that he could be an all-around more intelligent fighter. I think that, once again, he kind of comes from that Floyd Mayweather Jr. wannabe mimic style a little bit. And Devin Haney, he still does a great job. He's still a great fighter. But I don't think that he encompasses what fully was Floyd Mayweather Jr. Floyd Mayweather Jr. is debatably the greatest all-around fighter, if you know what you're watching. He's debatably the greatest all-around fighter, certainly of the past 20-plus years, but debatably of all time, some would say. And in terms of accomplishments, and also with the combined skill set and resume, you'd have to give that to Canelo Alvarez. Canelo also has a little bit of Floyd Mayweather Jr. in him as well. There's certain things that you can tell that Canelo Alvarez does that Floyd Mayweather Jr. did as well. He fights a little bit differently at this point in time in his career. But Canelo Alvarez, in terms of the all-around star power, in terms of the all-around accomplishments and resume, the closest one ever since Floyd Mayweather Jr. has ever retired, if you want to talk about that category, probably Canelo Alvarez.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Okay, so recently, Devin Haney and Bill Haney, they've been putting up a lot of posts paying tribute to Floyd Mayweather. This clip you guys are watching right here with Devin Haney working the pads with Floyd Mayweather Sr. And as you guys can see, Floyd Sr. is rocking the Dante's Boxing Nation shirt. There's also another video resurfacing of Floyd Mayweather and Floyd Mayweather Sr. praising Devin Haney as the next Floyd Mayweather.
I don't need to talk about myself because everyone already know what I've done in the sport of boxing. It's all about this kid right here. This is a carbon copy of this man right here.
That's a YouTube.
Every time that Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Floyd Mayweather Sr. talk, right? I mean, I can't tell if Floyd Mayweather Sr. I can't tell if he smoked for like 60 years, or I can't tell if he's just punch drunk. I can't really tell either or. Like the man sounds like he's trying to get a cigar out of his throat, and at the same time trying to trying to think of his next sentence. It's like Jesus Christ.
Okay, so then Bill Haney, he put this picture up of Floyd Mayweather and Devin Haney when he was a little kid. The reason why all of this is important to note is because it wasn't that long ago that Bill Haney had took shots at Floyd Mayweather when he was dissing Gervonta Tank Davis right after Devin Haney beat Regis Prograis, which was completely confusing to the boxing fans and didn't make a whole lot of sense because Floyd Mayweather had always praised Devin Haney as the next one up. And Devin Haney grew up in Floyd Mayweather's gym training. But for some reason, Bill Haney came out saying these things.
A lot of people are comparing Devin's performance tonight to Floyd Mayweather against Arturo Gatti. Is that something that you believe is the same, or is this Devin Haney? Just worry about Devin.
No, absolutely. This is Devin Haney. What Floyd didn't do at 25, Devin did do. This is the Devin Haney era. You know what I mean? And guess what? Floyd,
And let me also state this. I don't really have a problem with Bill Haney stating that, because a lot of these people, they get very highly offended when someone says that, you know, I believe that, you know, I could possibly beat Michael Jordan in a one-on-one, or, you know, this is my era, this isn't the Mayweather or Pacquiao era or anything like that. Now, I understand that you need a certain level of respect. I understand that, especially if you haven't accomplished anything like that. But, you know, for Devin Haney to kind of want to set off on his own path, or for him to say that, listen, I accomplished something that Floyd Mayweather Jr. didn't do, in my view, he has the right to state that, because Floyd Mayweather Jr. was never undisputed in any weight division. Now, does that necessarily mean that I think that Devin Haney is greater than what Floyd was at that age because of that reason? You know, I'm not quite sure if I would say that, you know, or at least more skilled than what Floyd was at that age. I'm not quite sure if I would say that. I'd have to take a look and see, you know, who all he defeated by the age of 25 and what he did. But at the end of the day, you know, I don't mind him saying that. But, of course, Bill Haney's going to take it even a little bit further.
keep talking that money if you want to. Yeah. It's somebody coming for the Mount Rushmore of boxing, and his name is Devin Haney. Yeah, 2-division world champion, undisputed champion, checking a bunch of money, man, and taking care of his team, man, by 25. And guess what? We ain't had no problems with no contracts, no disputes, no broadcasters, no none of that. Just the Devin Haney era. Don't ever mention Floyd Mayweather to me. We gonna give you the best fights.
And I'm almost wondering if there was possibly a money issue or an issue behind the scenes. I'm not really sure what the hell's going on here. As DontaesBoxingNation said, you know, Devin Haney did train in his gym for quite a while. You know, so Haney was almost kind of like a Floyd Mayweather Jr. protege. So I'm not really sure what's going on. Maybe he felt that Floyd Mayweather or the gym slighted them in some sort of way. I don't know.
We gonna get all the people in there.
Or who knows? Maybe this could be a way, and this is just pulling at straws. But maybe this could be a way to possibly get to Gervonta Tank Davis, or to get Floyd, or to get, you know, Gervonta Tank Davis. But I doubt it. Who knows?
I'm saying, because that's what we do, and we pay the fighters. We pay our fighters, and we give them. And listen, and we give them. We give the fans an opportunity to come in. That's that old bull ass business model that you're gonna charge the fans for some bull fights, and that you the face of boxing because you just keep shoving it down their throat, man. The Mayweather era, that's over with, man. It's the Devin Haney.
That's also a little bit of a shot at Gervonta Tank Davis in my view. Listen, what I'll say about this, because a lot of people have always criticized, I've seen two fighters mainly criticized during my era for those type of fights, Mayweather and Canelo Alvarez. You know, and the only one that I would say is really guilty of it, of putting on fights that I'm really not interested in seeing, or at least overall that aren't somewhat championship level worthy, is that of Gervonta Tank Davis. At least one thing that I can say about Mayweather and Canelo is that they fought legitimate A-grade level champion after A-grade level champion a lot of the times throughout the peak of their career. You know, whether it was, you know, what the hell was his name? I started off overall with the Argentinian fighter Carlos Baldomir. You know, maybe Zab Judah, Miguel Cotto, you know, Ricky Hatton, you know, Manny Pacquiao, of course, Marcos Maidana, Victor Ortiz, you know, certain fighters like that. And then, of course, Canelo, we know a lot of the names that he's fought as well. Saunders, Caleb Plant, Sergey the Crusher Kovalev, Miguel Cotto, you know, Danny Jacobs, Gennady Golovkin, Lara. The thing is, the reason why I criticize Gervonta Tank Davis to such a high degree, at least in terms of his resume, because it's like, dude, the guys that you're fighting are like, like you can't even compare the resumes between Davis and those two fighters. Like, it's absolutely a pathetic, you know, excuse to really compare. Because, I mean, like, what? Who am I supposed to compare? Mario Barrios? A guy that, has never been a champion? Rolly Romero, who's only a champion because a lot of those titles are vacant when it came down to it, and a guy who can't box worth a damn. It just is what it is. And Isaac Pitbull Cruz, someone who's never a champion or never has been a champion and probably never will be a champion, especially the way that it looks like it right now. So it's like, I'm sorry.
That Mayweather is over with, man. You hear me? Over with.
And that's why, a certain amount of people that'll ask me, they'll say, well, how can you put fighters like Teofimo Lopez, and it's always very interesting, that I get that I get some of these comments, because I get some of these guys, possibly from these channels, and I get some of these guys saying that how can you put Teofimo Lopez over Gervonta Tank Davis? And it's somewhat of a valid question. I don't have a problem answering it. But the reason why is because Teofimo Lopez, he might have that loss to George Kambosos, but at the end of the day, he also has 2 wins over 2 top 10 pound-for-pound fighters when they were looked at on my top 10 pound-for-pound list and everybody else's top 10 pound-for-pound list, and they were looked at as the best point in their career. Gervonta Tank Davis doesn't have anything close to that.
Floyd ain't never did what Devin did at 25. Tank ain't did it. Nobody else ain't did it. Listen, y'all just scared to say it, but I'm not. I'm not. I believe in my son. I've been watching him do it. You know what I mean? Against 7 different world championship fights at 25.
But Bill Haney doesn't stop there, because then he starts to diss Terrence Crawford, at least trying to take credit away from the biggest win in the sport of boxing at the time.
So, what else? Don't down and crown him, and then you're gonna say that Terrence Crawford, because he beat Earl Spence, and then say Earl Spence was weight depleted. He wasn't himself. So
isn't it very interesting how Canelo apparently was fighting these guys after a year layoff or after an injury and all this sort of stuff, and then DontaesBoxingNation or Naki TV, there's no hint of when Terrence Bud Crawford fought Yuriorkis Gamboa after a year layoff. There's been no telling about that, and that was one of the biggest wins in his career. There was never any conversation about how Errol Spence was off for a year and a half, and I'm not really a huge fan of those excuses either. But it just goes to show you once again that the LDBC and new media, they're not this super logical and objective people. They're a pro-black cult. Some people can like it, they can not like it, but that's what they are.
how can you have a pound for pound player, a fighter of the year performance against a fighter that ain't his best? Lomachenko was his best, and Regis Prograis was his best. You know,
well, I think that Regis Prograis was at his best. I think that it's a debate whether Vasily Lomachenko was at his best or not. Isn't that also very interesting, by the way, that Devin Haney fought Regis Prograis after coming off of a debatable loss against Zorrilla? I believe that one Puerto Rican fighter. No one ever mentions anything about it, but Canelo Alvarez does one of those things. He fights a guy after a debatable loss or after he didn't look, quite, an A+ performance, and they're already making excuses, saying that he's fighting a guy that's not the same fighter, but Devin Haney fights Regis Prograis and is perfectly okay. You don't hear any of those narratives. Once again, the LDBC and new media are the biggest hypocrites in terms of any sporting news that I've ever heard. And the reason why is because they're so damn emotional.
they were at their best, and Devin still beat them.
Now, do you guys notice Bill Haney, he made sure not to diss anyone that was not black. He didn't diss Inoue, who ironically was the one that was awarded the Fighter of the Year award.
And you notice basically what Dante's motivation is. He's saying, look at him insulting our black fighters. Look at him insulting Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Terrence Bud Crawford. Why didn't he insult Naoya Inoue or Usyk or Tyson Fury or someone like that? Why didn't he go after any of them? And listen, one can maybe wonder maybe why he didn't criticize some of those fighters. But Devin Haney and Bill Haney have already criticized some of those fighters in the past, especially Vasily Lomachenko, when he was a rival. So, it just is what it is.
Was Bill Haney basically explaining why he should get Fighter of the Year, his son should get it, over Terrence Crawford. But you got old media, they're looking at these guys laughing at Bill Haney, laughing at Terrence Crawford, because they were never planning.
And I do somewhat overall agree with that point, to where, if you have a problem with Crawford debatably getting it, then then maybe there, in a way, should be mentioned as well. But I don't really know when that was mentioned.
On giving it to either one of these black guys. They're just sitting back with popcorn watching these two black fighters tear each other down. Bill Haney was extremely comfortable to try to tear down Floyd Mayweather, but he didn't say anything about Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez, a fighter who's known for putting on pay-per-view fights against Abney Yildirim. Amir Khan avoided one of the deepest divisions at the time about 8 years ago when he was at 160, when Jamal Charlo was in his prime, when Dimitri...
Well, did Canelo Alvarez really avoid those fighters, or or was he fighting fighters that pretty much were along the same caliber of 168? Listen, people can say whatever they want to. People can say that, oh, well, Jamal Charlo and Andrade, they were undefeated black fighters. Right, but are they really A-plus level black fighters? I mean, there's no offense against Demetrius Andrade, but the first test of your career, you couldn't even last 6 rounds, or more than 6 rounds. Jamal Charlo, I've just never been super impressed with him. I always thought that Billy Joe Saunders and Caleb Plant were bigger threats than Jamal Charlo. And it turns out, that overall, that Caleb Plant, that he's probably about as good, if not even better than Demetrius Andrade. I mean, who the hell knows? There's certain things that Andrade does better than Caleb Plant for sure. But Caleb Plant put on much of a better fight and bigger fight against David Benavidez than what Andrade did. And Andrade was supposed to be the fresher fighter. He was the undefeated fighter. Caleb Plant was coming off of a knockout loss.
Andrade was in his prime, undefeated champions in their division. Canelo Alvarez decided to leave that division, go up to 168, where all the champions were European and unknown, and that's where he decided to become undisputed.
Right, so once again, Canelo Alvarez fights these white guys and these European white boys, and no, not every single one of them were European, because Caleb Plant, of course, he was from America, but it is what it is. Anyway, so yeah, he beats Caleb Plant, who Dante and Aki TV also said were A grade, and at one point in time said that Canelo would avoid him. They also said that Canelo would avoid Billy Joe Saunders, and they also said that Saunders and Plant, that they were big fights for other opponents that allegedly would beat and kill Canelo Alvarez, but as soon as Canelo fights him, they're bums, or overall, they're fighters that are washed, they're not the same, right? But then right afterwards, they're just as good. So, or they're good. They're biggest fights of big fights of the year, as long as Canelo's not facing them. Like, get the fuck out of here. At the end of the day, Canelo fought Caleb Plant. He fought Billy Joe Saunders. He fought Callum Smith. If you knew boxing, you knew all 3 of those fighters. And you knew that Saunders was one of the top middleweights in the world at one point in time. You knew that Caleb Plant was one of the top 168-pounders. And you knew that Callum Smith also was one of the top 168-pounders. And overall, that he was knocking out a lot of decent guys there. So let's stop the bullshit.
Going to completely trash Floyd Mayweather, a guy that they actually...
And remember, once again, Saunders was one of the biggest fights out there when he was about to fight Demetrius Bulbo Andrade. Remember, that was one of the fights that everyone was excited for. It was supposed to be a super fight, according to DontaesBoxingNation and some of these other guys. We're finally going to see Demetrius Andrade in a big fight. The same guy that allegedly was going to embarrass Canelo Alvarez after all these years. And then overall, the fight happens with Canelo, and then all of a sudden, oh, he's fighting a guy with no power. Okay.
Trained with since Devin Haney was a child in Floyd Mayweather's gym, and is considered the greatest of all time, even by Mexican boxers and trainers like Oscar De La Hoya, Nacho Beristain. Why wouldn't you expose what Canelo Alvarez has been doing for years and years when it comes to the type of fights he's been choosing? And the unfortunate answer is because a lot of these black people, they feel if I diss another black person, people don't really care, because the majority of fans are racist, non-black fans. So if you're just dissing another...
Well, I think that you can say overall that a lot of fans are are overall, somewhat racist, if you want to state that. Just like you're a racist, clearly, Dante. It just is what it is. And let's be real, if Dante's Boxing Nation was a Caucasian man, he wouldn't be able to get away with a lot of the shit that he's saying within these videos. It just is what it is. They're able to get away a lot of the times with, minorities, when it comes down to, especially in that of westernized society, and don't get me wrong, there is such a thing as, Caucasian or white privilege, if you want to say that, I guess, if you want to put it in that way, because, anyone, of course, who rules over that society, they're also going to have certain privileges as well. But whoever is looked at as the victims, when it comes down to it, they're pretty much going to be allowed to say whatever they say, or want to say, even if it is offensive towards that of other groups. And the reason why that is because, you're supposed to feel bad for them, and you're supposed to feel like they're the victims, and that we can't say anything because, we have to understand them more and all this other stuff. And that doesn't help out the minority groups either. And that's why I say the liberal movement doesn't really help out anybody in the end, because even the minority groups, such as the Latinos or such as, the blacks or, whatever it may be, whatever you want to label yourself as, if you're looked at as a minority, You know, when they take a look at it, they're not helping you out either. No one ever prospers and becomes more successful by usually becoming a victim. It usually doesn't happen.
The black fighter, you're not going to get that much backlash. But if you say something about Canelo, you're going to get flooded with racist comments, etc., etc. But black people know that Terrence Crawford, Floyd Mayweather, they're all hated the exact same way. They're all hated by the same fans. So they feel, look, if I diss them, the same people that hate me hates them as well. So the racist fan.
Well, I think overall what you'll say is this. If Bill Haney does have a problem with that of Floyd Mayweather Jr., if you maybe wanted to make this point, if he didn't go after Canelo Alvarez or Naoya in a way, maybe it was because he wanted the pressure and the support of those fans, if you want to go that far. But I'm not going to sit here and say that the only reason why he didn't mention those fighters is because, all these black fighters are just so worried about what the fans have to say. That I'm just not buying all that, especially after what I've seen, from what Terrence Crawford, Shakur Stevenson, and what Devin Haney have said, and Deontay Wilder. I'm just not buying all that.
Are not going to get mad at me for.
But the reason why Dante also has to make that point sometimes, and I'm not saying that sometimes that does not happen, but the reason why he also has to make that point is because whenever a fighter like Devin Haney or Gervonta Tank Davis or someone like that, whenever a black fighter, whenever they claim that in a way or that Canelo Alvarez is potentially the #1 pound-for-pound fighter or the real deal, he has to make it seem overall that they're afraid to voice their actual opinion. That way he can make you believe that Canelo Alvarez or Usyk or whoever they're talking about, or Tyson Fury, that they're not actually the real deal. And that the only reason why they're talking about them that way is because, they're afraid, of the race fans and all sort of bullshit.
Seen a fighter that they don't like as well, which makes the black fighters expendable. See, this is what these black fighters don't understand. All of these black fighters are getting treated the exact same way by these racist fans. I tell you guys all the time, the sport of boxing is based on race, nationality, and pride. The vast majority of boxing.
I agree, Mr. Dante's Boxing Nation, and you're the pot calling the kettle black, sir. I don't understand overall, once again, how you're any less racist, than a lot of these other fans or a lot of these other analyzers that I see.
Fans that are not black, they are completely
because of the same, he talks about double standards all the time, but he puts out double standards on a daily basis.
Most of them are not even boxing fans, they're race fans. Meaning they.
As are you, Dante. As are you. Once again, I've never seen, a bigger hypocrite in that of the boxing news.
They don't really have any favorite fighters. They just have the fighters that they root against, which are the black fighters. And what black fighters don't understand is they think that when they're being mistreated by these racist fans, the best thing for them to do is look out for themselves only. What I mean by that is they'll start dissing other black boxers, start using old media's talking points, the racist fans' talking points, to diss another black fighter, while at the same time asking why they're not getting the credit that they deserve. For example, right now.
Well, you can debate maybe that sometimes that happens, but I also think that especially because some of these black fighters are in the same weight divisions, that they're just going to eventually get frustrated and somewhat trash talk and try to tear each other down to a certain level of degree. It just is what it is, And Devin Haney, he's around that same weight class as Shakur Stevenson and Gervonta Tank Davis, so you're going to have to expect that a lot. Now, if you were just talking about, Devin Haney discrediting overall, now the Terrence Bud Crawford situation somewhat makes sense, but even there, he was somewhat of a rival because of the Fighter of the Year. But of course, one could mention that he did mention it in a way, so if you wanted to maybe mention that point, I get it. But, for example, if you were going to mention this with a lot of other black fighters, like, for example, if Shakur Stevenson was talking shit about the Charlo brothers, or if he was talking shit about AJ Anthony Joshua or Deontay Wilder, then I would kind of get it. And it seemed like it was a little bit out of pocket or that there wasn't any excuse for it. Then I kind of get it. But, with a lot of these rivals, that's just going to happen.
Everyone has Terrence Crawford as pound for pound the best fighter in the world. Some of the most racist organizations, they had to concede to putting Terrence Crawford at #1. But yet Devin Haney.
Right, but here's also the problem, Dante. And this is the thing. Dante wants you to be perfectly okay with him placing Terrence Bud Crawford as the #1 pound for pound fighter, even when he never fucking beat anybody. It's like, no offense against Terrence Crawford, but it's like, dude, you have maybe about 4 A-grade wins in your career. That is about the maximum amount of A-grade wins in your career, and two of those wins debatably were not even A-grade. It's like, it's no offense, but Dante is saying overall that they eventually had to concede, like they were forced to put him there. No, they put him there at the proper time. At the end of the day, it's just that Dante's Boxing Nation ain't happy with anything until he sees a top 10 pound for pound list with nothing but black fighters. Because that's what he wants. Because he's just as emotional and racial and racist overall, just as any possible most racist old media member. It just is what it is. It's no offense, but it's like, dude, Terrence Bud Crawford before the Errol Spence Jr. win, who the fuck did he have on his resume? It's like the man overall had Sean Porter, and some would not even count that as an A-grade win because he wasn't a champion at that time. But he had Sean Porter. I'll give him that for an A-grade win. He had Victor Postell. I'll give him an A- for that. And Yoyorkis Gamboa. I'll have an A- for that. None of the other wins in his career were A-grade. None of them. Not Joyous Ndango. Not Ricky Burns. Not Raimundo Beltran. Not Jeff Horn. None of those other fighters are A-grade fighters. Just stop.
Is doing interviews. He's asking who's pound for pound the best fighter in the world. And he says it's Canelo Alvarez. And even a white reporter that was interviewing him was puzzled. It's the reporter that does the MMA interview.
Right, but is that really overall because he's trying to appease the race fans, or is that because overall, once again, that's just what he truly believes? Because I would understand if Devin Haney didn't have any good points, but at the end of the day, the point is that even Terrence Crawford right now, although I would have him as my, debatably undisputed, but as my number one pound for pound fighter, there is still some other fighters out there. Now, if Crawford had a resume like that of Floyd Mayweather Jr. or like that of Canelo Alvarez, then I would kind of get it. Then I would kind of say, okay, I can see your point. But the problem is that Crawford only has like 4 A-grade level wins, man. And on top of that, Canelo Alvarez is a champion in more weight classes. He's also been undisputed in a weight class before. And on top of that, he just has way more A-grade names on his list. It just is what it is. So that's what Devin Haney said. He said that he's also beating guys in higher weight classes. And he said the reason why he lost to Bivol, he was in a higher weight class. So he's doing things in higher weight divisions. So it's not like Devin Haney had a bullshit excuse for putting Canelo at the number one spot. And if you wanted to debate that, you could. But that's the thing about Dante. He's telling these black fighters to tell the truth. What the truth is for Dante's Boxing Nation is basically for you to say that Canelo Alvarez is being overrated. That Usyk and that Fury and that these guys are being overrated. Even when sometimes they're being ranked properly.
He said, a lot of people would say it's Terrence Crawford. Devin Haney completely going against the grain, saying, nah, it's Canelo Alvarez. See, guys, what makes old media so powerful is they always stay on code, meaning they're never going to throw one of their...
Right, so basically what you're telling a lot of these black fighters is that we need to have a hive mind. We need to have a cult-like personality. Dante is not helping out any black people. He's not helping out any black fighters. All he's telling you to do is to be a pawn and to be a parasite. That's all he's telling you to do.
Non-black fighters under the bus because he says something that was out of pocket. For example, Teofimo Lopez. Teofimo Lopez is always saying real stupid stuff, right? But no matter what Teofimo Lopez says, he's dissing Top Rank, he's dissing ESPN, he's saying the dumbest things, and ESPN is still praising him like he's one of the best fighters in the world.
Right, so what do you really want these black fighters to do then? Do you want these black fighters, after someone says something out of pocket, do you want them overall to just stay on code, when it comes down to it? Like if someone says, fuck Asians or something like that, you want overall these black fighters and all these black channels to stay on code and stick up for them? Because that's not logic and that's not objectivity. It just is what it is. What that means is that you have as much of an intention to be biased overall just as much as these other channels. You just want their level of power. That's all you want.
Still putting them on their pound for pound list because the agenda, the narrative, the message is more important than some beef with just one individual. But black fighters don't do this. When it comes to black fighters, it's every man for himself. Terrence Crawford gets treated the exact same way.
Now, if you want to say something along the lines to where I think that black fighters and that black fans, that they need to kind of stick together, and overall we need to try to be, as supportive of each other, and overall not try to tear each other down, but instead celebrate our accomplishments, and maybe get some of these bigger fights made, create our own pound for pound list, create our own rankings, stop giving so much credit to that of ESPN and all this sort of stuff, call out certain double standards. Oh, that's cool. But Dante doesn't just want that, it appears.
Devin Haney.
Because if you don't go against the grain, and if you overall, don't go after Inoue, if you don't go after Lomachenko or some of these other guys, and even if you claim that some of these guys are the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, Dante's not happy with that. And now he's going to say, shit, now we have to worry about some of these guys on the pound-for-pound list. Why would you overall acclaim them to be a top pound-for-pound fighter? Now we have to worry about these type of level of narratives.
Is getting treated. But yet Devin Haney, he thinks it's better for him to throw Terrence Crawford under the bus by saying Canelo Alvarez should be considered pound for pound above Terrence Crawford. No matter.
Right, but is that really throwing Terrence Bud Crawford under the bus, or is that just his opinion? Now, if he said something along the lines to where he beat an Errol Spence Jr. that was completely washed up, but then Canelo Alvarez beat a Sergey the Crusher Kovalev, overall that was completely at his best, then I would somewhat understand what you're meaning. But just because he said that Canelo Alvarez is above that of Terrence Bud Crawford, don't mean that he's throwing Terrence Bud Crawford under the bus. Now, if you want to say that his father did that, Bill Haney, then I kind of get it. But just because someone claims that someone is the #1 pound-for-pound fighter doesn't mean that they're throwing them under the bus. You're just pissed off overall because, once again, he has his own opinion. And at the end of the day, you don't want to deal with those type of narratives.
Who Terrence Crawford beat? The only way black fighters are truly going to get the credit that they deserve and eliminate all of these racial double standards in the sport of boxing is if they stand together, stand united. And the crazy thing about me saying this is I'm not even saying they have to
You're never ever going to eliminate double standards in that of professional sports, Dante. You're never ever going to eliminate that of double standards in that of a profession. It just is what it is. Double standards, they're always going to be a part of it. There is no such thing as actual equality. Nowhere. All right, that doesn't mean that we all don't deserve respect and that we all don't have value, but none of us are all the same. None of us are completely the same. It just is what it is. There is no such thing as equality. All right, at the end of the day, and that's not me saying that we should not keep the same standards and that we should not treat people with the proper respect. That's not what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, once again, you are going to get treated a little bit differently. I don't know if the double standards, at least from that old media, are ever going to go away. Because at the end of the day, a lot of them probably are somewhat racially motivated. Just like Dante and a certain amount of these other LDBC and new media guys are racially motivated. But what they need to be concerned about, if you want to say band together, you could create your own pound-for-pound list. You could create your own podcast. You could create your own shows. And then on top of that, you don't try to tear down, or you overall don't try to, basically do some of the old media's points. If you want to say something like that, then it makes sense.
Lie about anything. Just speak the truth unapologetically. Don't worry about.
Right, but what does speak the truth unapologetically mean, Dante? To say that Canelo Alvarez is the most overrated fighter of the past 10 plus years and that he's a cherry picker, to say that Inoue is clearly not the #1 pound-for-pound fighter and that he's being majorly overrated just because he's not a black fighter. What is the truth in your perspective?
A backlash from a bunch of racists. Because on the contrary, that's exactly what the racist media does. That's what old media does. They're willing to lie just to remain loyal to all of the non-black fighters that they support.
Exactly, and so are you. So once again, what is Dante really telling you about himself? What is Dante saying overall once again? What is he saying?
Like ESPN putting up fake.
Once again, why do you think they call themselves new media instead of giving themselves a complete new name? Once again, it's old media versus new media. The only reason why new media bitches about old media so much, and don't get me wrong, some of their narratives, need to be addressed as well, just like I address some of the LDBCs. But it's very clear that they have a jealousy over the amount of power that old media has, because their narratives, and their racial bias is absolutely no better and possibly even worse than that of ESPN or Ring Magazine or Boxing Rec.
Graphics of Lomachenko still being undefeated, or calling Teofimo Lopez an undisputed champion when he doesn't have all 4 belts. You see that kind of loyalty? That's the same kind of loyalty these black fighters are supposed to have amongst each other. But all you have...
You're supposed to have loyalty and you're supposed to have respect. What you're not supposed to have is delusion, at least overall to that degree, and lie overall to your people and lie overall to that group. And that's a big part of the reason why some of these fighters like Deontay Wilder, they ended up getting their ass kicked so bad in the rematch, like against that of Tyson Fury. Because instead of telling Deontay Wilder the truth, they also were such fanboys and so racially motivated that instead of telling him the truth, they overall wanted to keep that delusion alive of possibly having Tyson Fury having no wins against Deontay Wilder and no, he cheated and all sort of bullshit, instead of really giving them the truth. That's why I say that, these channels, they're not really helping out much anybody either, because all they're teaching you to do is bitch, moan, and complain and be a victim. And when you do that, you don't go forward.
Do is tell the truth. If you're in the same boat as the other black fighter, you can't throw him under the bus and use all of the old media's talking points to diss.
Right, so don't throw Terrence Bud Crawford, don't throw your own fighters under the bus, don't throw the black fighters under the bus, throw Caucasian and other other demographic of fighters under the bus. Is that basically what your message is, Dante? What are you trying to say?
That black fighter, but then say, hey guys, how come I'm not getting the credit I deserve? You have to all be on the same page, because numbers is power. Once again, this is why old media is so powerful, because they have so many numbers that are on the same page. No matter what they fabricate, no matter what they are lying about, they are all on the same page when they do it and when they say it. The fact that the Haneys was dissing Terrence Crawford, and Terrence Crawford, he was explaining why he should be considered pound for pound, or at least the fighter of the year. Crawford, he never took any shots at Devin Haney, but Devin Haney, or the Haneys, they definitely took shots at Terrence Crawford.
Well, I think that Bill Haney took shot at Terrence Bud Crawford. I don't think that Devin Haney did, at least not with what you told me.
By taking credit away, or trying to take credit away from Terrence Crawford's win. They did all of that, and old media still gave Inoue the Fighter of the Year award. At least.
Right, which he very richly deserved. He had fought more times throughout the year. He had won more belts throughout the year. He had won in 2 separate weight classes throughout the year, or at least the past 12 months, and he fought more champions. And on top of that, he fought a guy that you claimed was going to beat him and embarrass him and was top 10 pound for pound. So what the hell are you bitching for?
ESPN did, which is the biggest sporting network in the country. We've heard so many black fighters say I'm the most hated fighter in the sport. Gervonta said it. Shakur said it. Devin Haney said it. Floyd Mayweather said it. Andre Ward said it. Because the better the black fighter is, the more of a threat he will be to the racists. But I keep telling
I somewhat agree with that. I definitely think that that's somewhat of a point, and that's why a lot of these black fighters, they will be hated on by that of certain fans, because they don't want them to be remembered as all-time greats or surpassing some of the fighters that, they like, or, they don't want more potential black athletes to be remembered as, great. If you want to claim that. It's also the same reason why Dante doesn't want certain fighters like Inoue or Usyk or Fury or Canelo remembered as the best of their generation. Because what their worst fear is that they eventually see Canelo or, Usyk or Fury or some of these other fighters in the same league as Sugar Ray Robinson, Muhammad Ali, and Floyd Mayweather, and Sugar Ray Leonard and Roy Jones Jr. That's their worst nightmare. They can't have that. So that's why they're trying as hard as they can to degrade, and say that they're not the best fighter of this era and all sort of stuff. And listen, at the end of the day, oftentimes black fighters have been the best fighters of boxing. They just usually overall have been the ripest talents. It just is what it is. I don't think that there's anything wrong with saying that. But at the end of the day, every once in a while, when there is a Canelo, when there is a Tyson Fury, when there is a Usyk, when there is someone like that, or an Inoue, and they're getting somewhat of similar accomplishments, or they also have a good resume and a great skill set, you got to give them their credit as well. But the LDBC and new media doesn't know how to do that. So once again, they're not really any better.
you guys, that microphone and the camera is a very, very powerful weapon. It can be used for you or it can be used against you. In this case, black fighters, they need to be using that huge platform to expose the racial double standards in the sport of boxing. Stop just only talking about how you're being mistreated and talk about how the other black fighter who's in the same boat as you are, how he's being mistreated. And it doesn't make any sense to have a Noe over Terrence Crawford. When Terrence Crawford beat...
Right, but they didn't put it in a way, once again, over Terrence Bud Crawford for pound fighter. They put him as fighter of the year. And yes, it does make sense. It's just that you don't like that. It is what it is. You know, would he have been my vote for fighter of the year? I mean, you could debate whoever you wanted to go for. If you wanted to go for Devin Haney, if you wanted to go for that of Terrence Crawford, if you wanted to go for that of Inoue, I don't really have a problem. But yeah, personally, Inoue probably would have been my vote as well. I just think that he fought the most amount of times within the past 12 months. He won the most amount of belts. He also looked the most dominant within his fights. You know, and on top of that, he beat a guy that probably would have been within my top 20 pound for pound. And he won the most amount of belts, I think, overall within the past year. So, I mean, he's up there.
a fighter that was pound for pound top 5, one of the best fighters in the world, in a super fight that had been building for like 5 years. If all of these
Right, but the problem also is, Dante's Boxing Nation, is that Terrence Bud Crawford, he only fought 1 or 2 times within the past 12 months. And on top of that, he really only fought once, I think, if you want to say that. But I get, if you want to count the David Avanesian fight, because I can't really remember when that fight happened. It was either November or December last year, maybe December. But the thing is that David Avanesian was clearly not the best of opponents, a C-grade level fighter. And then, of course, he had the great win, where he won the rest of the belts. But, once again, I don't have a problem with Inoue winning Fighter of the Year. But they rated Crawford as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter. But once again, Dante's not just happy with that. He can't have, Terrence Bud Crawford just be the #1 pound-for-pound fighter. He needs them also to put them as Fighter of the Year. Now, someone did bring up this point, and I thought it was a decent point, where they said, well, for Fighter of the Year for ESPN, they've won it for a certain amount of years now and not given it to Crawford or a certain black fighter. And if that's true, to be honest, I would have to take a look at it. Then I would somewhat understand the point. But I can't bitch, moan, and complain too much when Inoue is getting that of the award when he fought more times, fought a guy that also would have been on Dante's top 20 to top 10 pound-for-pound list, looked just as dominant as Terrence Bud Crawford, won more belts, won and fought in more weight divisions. I mean, I just can't complain about that.
black fighters start using these microphones and these social media accounts to come out and start putting these double standards on blast, this stuff would change overnight. That's a guarantee. Instead of dissing other great black fighters that have been treated the same way, like Floyd Mayweather, it makes no sense at all. It's time for these black fighters and black people in general to start getting united the same way these old media members and the rest of the racist fans do. We have some black fighters that come out and do.
Right, but you want to get united just like that of the racist fans and just like that of old media does. So then what are you really saying, Dante? What you're saying is that you want to be as bogus in your outtakes overall as them, that you want to be as united and as hive-minded as them, to the point to where even with certain double standards, we're on the same page. And I'm sorry, but I just, I can't agree with that.
But now, fighters like...
And whether he means to say that or not, subconsciously, that's pretty much what he's putting out there. It just is what it is.
like Clarissa Shields, Julian J. Rock Williams. It's only a handful right now. But once again, if we get all of them to be on the same page, just like old media, once again, things are going to change overnight. That is a guarantee. I'm going to say it one more time. As a black fighter, you cannot throw other black fighters under the bus using the same old media talking points that have been used against you. You guys heard Bill Haney say, everyone else is afraid to say what I'm saying. He was talking about what he said about Floyd Mayweather. That's not true at all. It's the contrary. No one is afraid to diss another black fighter. What people are afraid to do...
Well, what Bill Haney was saying, at least in that sense, is that basically what he was saying is that Floyd Mayweather Jr., that he was on a different path, and Haney has already accomplished more at this age than what Floyd did. Basically alleging that he's already on a greater career path, or at least on his way than that of Floyd Mayweather Jr. And of course, a certain amount of people probably would be afraid to say that, because for a lot of people, it would be sacrilegious to say that. Listen, what I'm going to say is this. I can't tell you if Devin Haney accomplished more at this point in time in his career than what Floyd did, because I don't really remember. I wasn't around the whole entire time when Floyd started boxing, or at least I didn't watch boxing at that time. I wasn't super involved with it, because that would have been, in the early 90s and early 2000s. But at the end of the day, of course, would I say that Haney is greater than Floyd, or that, that he has similar accomplishments? No, of course he has a long way to go. But we'll see what happens.
Expose the fighters that are not black, the ones that these racist fans support, those fighters that they always root for when they're fighting against a black fighter, like Lomachenko fighting Devin Haney. Afraid to do is expose the fighters that are not black, the ones that these racist fans support, those fighters that they always root for when they're...
Right, so what Dante is basically telling you here is that we can't throw each other under the bus. We need to throw those other fighters under the bus, and we need to be criticizing them.
Fighting against a black fighter, like Lomachenko fighting Devin Haney.
Because is it throwing Inoue under the bus then to say that, once again, that, he's completely overrated and that he doesn't deserve Fighter of the Year, over Terrence Bud Crawford, even though he won more belts, fought more champions, when it came down to it, fought a fighter that on your pound-for-pound list, by the way, was top 10 pound-for-pound, when it came down to it, debatably top 5, I believe, on your list, is that throwing Inoue under the bus, Dante?
or Kovalev fighting against Andre Ward, Floyd Mayweather fighting against Canelo Alvarez, Tommy the
And Dante isn't even Dante isn't even saying overall that we need to, go after overall the media right here. He's saying that you need to go after the fighters. So once again, that tells you his motivations.
Hitman Hearns fighting against Roberto Duran. You know what those fights all have in common? In all of those fights, the black American was the one that was booed in his own country while he was fighting against the foreigner. I'll close out with saying this. While Bill Haney was comparing, his son's success to Floyd Mayweather's success, there's enough of success to go around. And once again, Canelo...
There's enough of success to go around. So once again, there's no problem with comparing Devin Haney, Terrence Bud Crawford, Shakur Stevenson, Floyd Mayweather Jr. Once again, you always notice that whenever a Canelo conversation comes up in terms of the #1 pound-for-pound fighter, or Lomachenko or Usyk, Dante always has a problem with it, and he always says, "See, they're trying to say that they're the Michael Jordan of the sport, right?" But then Devin Haney overall states, overall, or certain people state that Devin Haney could debatably be the #1 pound-for-pound fighter, or Crawford, or Spence, or another black fighter, and there's no problem with it. There's only a problem if a non-black fighter like Inoue, Canelo, or Usyk are labeled as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter. So this goes to show you that Dante, once again, he's so full of shit. But it is what it is.
Alvarez is still fighting today. Why don't you compare your success to Canelo Alvarez? After all, it's Devin Haney who's saying that Canelo is greater than he is. How are you telling people that you're greater than Floyd Mayweather, but you refuse to say you're greater than Canelo Alvarez? Make it make sense. Just to give you guys...
Because Canelo Alvarez and Floyd Mayweather Jr. have more similar careers than what you're willing to admit, Dante. It is what it is. People try to sit here and listen. That's not me stating that in my view that Canelo was greater than Mayweather. I would say that Mayweather is greater than Canelo. But at the end of the day, Canelo Alvarez has fought repeated champions and repeated A-grade level fighters. Dante tries to sit here and act like Canelo is like fucking Jaime Munguia or some shit like that. Dude, Canelo at the end of the day has over 60 fights. And at the end of the day, he's fought repeated champion after repeated champion. Danny Jacobs, Gennady Golovkin, Erislandy Lara, Sergey the Crusher Kovalev, Miguel Cotto, literally Caleb Plant, Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, literally all these champions. Not even bringing up the other ones like Amir Khan or Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., Jamel Charlo, some of the other ones. It's like, dude, you can't compare their careers.
An update. Devin Haney originally, he did this interview with the MMA guy. And at first, they asked him, before he beat Regis Prograis, they asked...
Like these guys like Boxing Eagle and Dante, they try to say that, I don't even think Canelo's above Marco Antonio Barrera and Eric Morales. Like, get the fuck out of here. It's like, oh, please. But then Terrence Bud Crawford gets one definitive A-grade win in his career against Errol Spence Jr., and all of a sudden he's top 10 and top 5 of all time, undisputed. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Who's pound for pound the best fighter in the world? He said it was Canelo Alvarez as #1. And of course, he always had Terrence Crawford behind Canelo. After Devin Haney beat Regis Prograis, he was asked the same question by that same guy. This time he said he's #1. And then he said Canelo is #2 and Terrence Crawford is #3. Now, obviously, all of that is extremely subjective, but my thing is...
Right, so then why do you have a huge problem with it? Now, if it was someone overall like, Jesse Bam Bam Rodriguez or someone like a Dimitri Bivol, then I'd kind of get it. Someone who hasn't accomplished enough yet in their career. But, Canelo was a very accomplished dude.
Once again, when Bill Haney said, I'm not afraid to say it, let's see if Bill Haney is willing to explain why he believes his son, Devin Haney, is greater and more accomplished than Canelo Alvarez. Like he was so comfortable to compare his son to Floyd Mayweather. With that being said, I'm going to wrap this video up. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one. All right, now check this out, guys. If you're looking to...
But I understand what Dante is kind of saying there at the end. I get it. Saying overall that, why would you go after Floyd Mayweather, and not Canelo Alvarez? Because Canelo was still fighting and blah, blah, blah. And he's compared as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter. I understand. But obviously there's a little bit of tension there. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because of the Gervonta Tank Davis situation. Or maybe he believes that Mayweather, kind of stinted them in some way or kind of screwed them over. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I thought that I would talk about this video. I just thought that it was very interesting. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. But once again, I always tell you guys that this is what Dante's motivations are, what he wants you to do, especially if you're a black fan or a black fighter. He wants you to think in this collective hive mind, and basically be on the same code, overall with them, no matter what it is, overall, just like that old media is. That's all he wants you to do. All he wants to do is be the pro-black code version of old media. That's all he wants. It is what it is. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. Thank you so much for watching. And, and we'll see where Mr. Devin Haney goes from here. Because, of course, he had a great year as well. Beating Vasily Lomachenko. Of course, some would debate that he should have lost. I thought that it was close enough to where it could have went either way. So I don't mind it. And then, of course, he was able to completely embarrass Regis Prograis. So Devin Haney, of course, a very great fighter on the rise. We'll see where he goes from here. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to y'all later.